My brother sold our family home without telling me, and I found out too late to stop him. Our family home wasn't just a building, it was where every memory lived. When my brother sold it without telling me, I felt betrayed in ways I can't describe. I drove back, stood outside, and watched strangers move in. It felt like my childhood had been boxed up and sold. I realized then that sometimes people see value only in money, not meaning. Hear this. There are some betrayals that don't announce themselves with shouting or violence. They arrive quietly, in a text message, in a signature you never wrote, in the sound of a moving truck pulling into a driveway that used to be yours. My brother sold our family home without telling me. He forged my name, closed the deal, and by the time I found out, strangers were already unpacking their lives into the rooms where ours used to be. I thought I knew what loss felt like when we buried our parents. I was wrong. This was different. This was watching someone take a knife to every memory you ever loved and selling the pieces to the highest bidder. Welcome to my Reddit diaries, where every story reveals the unseen battles within families. Don't forget to subscribe and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The text came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in a design meeting, my phone buzzing against the conference table. I glanced down and saw my brother's name, Marcus. We hadn't spoken in maybe 2 months. The message was short. Hey man, handled that house situation. Don't worry about it anymore. I stared at those words. Handled what house situation? We didn't have a house situation. We had the house. The house. The one on Maple Street with the blue shutters and the oak tree Dad planted the year I was born. The one we inherited together when Mom and Dad died 3 years ago in that accident that still doesn't feel real. I excused myself from the meeting and called him immediately. He picked up on the 4th ring. What do you mean you handled it? The house, Danny. I sold it. The room tilted. I pressed my palm against the wall to steady myself. You what? I sold the house. Closed last week. Got a decent price too, considering the market. Marcus, you can't sell the house. We both own it. You needed my signature. Silence. Then he said it. I signed for you. My throat went tight. You forged my signature. Don't make it sound so dramatic. You were never going to agree anyway. You're too stuck in the past, Danny. That house was falling apart and bleeding money. Someone had to make the hard decision. That wasn't your decision to make alone. Well, it's done now. The new owners take possession this week. I'll send you your half of what's left after expenses. After expenses? Marcus, what the hell are you talking about? We can talk about this later. I have to go. He hung up. I stood there in the hallway of my office building in Seattle, surrounded by glass and steel and the hum of ambition, and I felt like I was drowning. The house wasn't just property. It was the kitchen where Mom taught me to make her famous lasagna. It was the backyard where Dad and I built that treehouse that took us 3 summers to finish. It was the living room where Marcus and I used to build pillow forts and stay up late watching movies we were too young to understand. It was the place where we were a family. I booked a flight that night. I didn't tell Marcus I was coming. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got there. I just knew I had to see it. One more time. The flight felt endless. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the last time I was home, almost a year ago. I'd stayed in a hotel. Couldn't bring myself to sleep in that house without them in it. Marcus had been living there, supposedly taking care of things, keeping it maintained. He'd said he was handling everything. I believed him. I sent money when he asked. I thought that was enough. I landed just after dawn and drove straight through town in a rental car. Everything looked the same but different. Smaller somehow. The coffee shop where we used to get hot chocolate after school had closed. There was a new gas station where the old video store used to be. Time had moved on while I was gone, reshaping the landscape of my childhood into something I barely recognized. I turned onto Maple Street as the sun was coming up, painting everything gold. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then I saw it. The house. The house. But there was a moving truck in the driveway. A U-Haul with its back doors open. Boxes stacked on the porch. A man in his 30s carrying a lamp inside. A woman directing him, pointing, organizing. And then I saw her. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, with dark pigtails, running across the front lawn with a stuffed rabbit under her arm. She was running across my lawn. The same grass Dad used to make me mow every Saturday. The same yard where Marcus broke his arm falling out of that oak tree. The same porch where we used to sit on summer nights, listening to crickets and watching fireflies. I parked across the street. I couldn't move. I just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching these strangers carry their future into my past. The man came back out, said something to the woman that made her laugh. The little girl did a cartwheel. A bad one. She landed on her side and got up laughing. I thought about getting out. Thought about walking up to them and saying what? That this was my house? That they didn't belong here? That every window they looked through, every door they opened, every floor they walked on held pieces of a life they could never understand? But it wasn't my house anymore. Not legally. Not really. I watched them for over an hour. Watched them bring in furniture and boxes and plants and all the things that make a house a home. They were starting over here. Building something new. They had no idea what had happened in those rooms. They didn't know that Mom used to sing while she cooked Sunday dinner. They didn't know that Dad kept a pencil mark on the kitchen doorframe tracking our heights every birthday. They didn't know that Marcus and I used to sneak downstairs on Christmas Eve trying to catch Santa. They didn't know anything. And somehow that felt like the biggest betrayal of all. The sun climbed higher. The moving truck pulled away. The family went inside. The door closed. I sat there until the late afternoon, until the shadows grew long and the streetlights flickered on. The same streetlights Marcus and I used to race to when we were kids, competing to see who could get there first. I thought about calling Marcus. Screaming at him. Asking him how he could do this. But I already knew the answer. He saw a house. 4 walls and a roof and a property tax bill. He saw numbers on a spreadsheet and maintenance costs and market value. I saw home. And that was the difference. That was why he could sell it and why I never could. I started the engine. Pulled away from the curb. Drove past the house one last time. In the window, I could see warm light. The family moving around inside. The little girl's silhouette as she ran through what used to be our living room. I drove to Marcus's apartment across town. I didn't call ahead. I just showed up and knocked. He opened the door looking surprised, then guilty, then defensive, all in the span of 3 seconds. Danny, I didn't know you were coming. You sold our childhood. He stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was modern, sterile, nothing on the walls. It looked like a place someone was staying, not living. He didn't offer me anything. We just stood there in his kitchen, 2 brothers who used to know everything about each other, now strangers bound only by blood and betrayal. You had no right, I said. I had every right. I've been carrying that house for 3 years while you sent a check twice a year and pretended that was enough. You forged my signature, Marcus. That's fraud. I could have you arrested. Then do it. We stared at each other. And in that moment I realized something. My brother wasn't just the villain in this story. He was drowning and I hadn't even noticed. But that didn't change what he'd done. It didn't change the fact that I just watched strangers move into the last place on earth where our family still existed. Why? I asked. Just tell me why. He looked at me with eyes that held more pain than I'd ever seen in them. Because I couldn't breathe in that house anymore, Danny. And you were never coming back to save me. Marcus's apartment felt like a cage. Small, lifeless, the kind of place you rent when you're not planning to stay long. We stood there in his kitchen, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, and I realized I didn't know my brother anymore. Maybe I never did. What do you mean you couldn't breathe? I asked. He walked to his laptop on the counter, opened it, pulled up a spreadsheet. Numbers filled the screen. Red numbers mostly. This is what you never saw, Danny. Property taxes went up 18% last year. The insurance company dropped us after that storm damaged the roof. I had to find new coverage at twice the price. The furnace died in January. Do you know how much a new furnace costs? $12,000. The plumbing started backing up into the basement. Another $8 grand. The foundation had cracks. The electrical panel was from 1987 and failing inspection. He scrolled through page after page of expenses. I took out a second mortgage just to keep up with repairs. $30,000, Danny. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel guilty. You had your life in Seattle. Your career. Your fresh start. I stayed behind and I carried it all. I looked at the numbers. Really looked. And I saw 3 years of my brother drowning in debt while I sent him $2,000 every few months and thought I was doing my part. You should have told me. Would it have changed anything? Would you have come back? Or would you have just sent more money and stayed exactly where you were? I didn't have an answer for that. He closed the laptop and leaned against the counter. He looked older than 28. Tired. Worn down. I stayed in that house for 3 years, Danny. Alone. I slept in my childhood bedroom. I ate dinner at the table where we used to do homework. I heard Mom's voice in every corner. I saw Dad every time I walked past his study. You got to grieve from a distance. I lived in the museum of our dead family every single day. Something in his voice broke. Not anger. Exhaustion. After the first year, I started drinking. Just a little at first. A beer after work. Then 2. Then a bottle of whiskey that I'd tell myself would last the week, but I'd finish in 2 days. I was drowning in that house and nobody noticed because nobody was there to see it. I felt something shift inside me. Guilt maybe, or shame. I'd left. I'd run 3,000 miles away because I couldn't handle being in that town without our parents. And I'd left Marcus to handle everything. The house. The grief. The loneliness. All of it. Where did the money go? I asked. He pulled out a folder, handed it to me. Bank statements. Transaction records. Everything documented. Half went to paying off the second mortgage and the remaining debt on repairs. A quarter is in an account for you. Your share after expenses. The rest I used for rehab. I looked up at him. I checked myself into a program 2 months ago. 30 days inpatient. That's why I finally sold the house. I couldn't afford to keep it and get help. I had to choose. I sat down at his small kitchen table. The folder was heavy in my hands. My brother had been falling apart and I hadn't known. Hadn't asked. Hadn't been there. You still should have told me, I said. About all of it. I know. And I should have asked permission before selling. I shouldn't have forged your signature. That was wrong. But Danny, I'm not sorry I sold it. That house was killing me. Slowly. Every day. We sat in silence. Outside, the city moved on. Cars passing. People living their lives. And here we were, two brothers trying to figure out how to be family when everything that made us family was gone. I want to see it, I said. One more time. Danny, there's nothing to see. New people live there now. I don't care. I need to see it. He looked at me for a long moment, then grabbed his keys. We drove in silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. We parked across the street from the house, same spot where I'd been that morning. The moving truck was gone. There were lights on inside. Through the windows I could see the family. The father was assembling something. The mother was unpacking boxes in what used to be the dining room. The little girl was running in circles. I see them and I hate them, Marcus said quietly. Not because they're bad people. They're probably great. But because they get to be happy there and we never can be again. I understood what he meant. That house had been poisoned by loss. Every good memory we had was wrapped in the absence of the people who made them. You can't live in a place like that. Not really. You just haunt it. Do you remember the time Dad fell through the porch trying to fix it? I asked. Marcus smiled. He was so mad. But Mom couldn't stop laughing. Or when we convinced them to let us camp in the backyard and we lasted about 2 hours before we got scared and came back inside. We were 8 and 5. And it was raccoons. Definitely raccoons. We sat there trading memories like currency. Little pieces of the past that only we shared. And I realized something. The house wasn't the thing that mattered. These stories were. This connection. My brother sitting next to me, alive and sober and trying. I have something to show you, Marcus said. He drove us to a storage facility on the edge of town. We walked down a long corridor of identical units until he stopped at number 247. He unlocked it and pulled up the door. Inside was our childhood. Boxes labeled in Marcus's handwriting. Mom's recipe box sitting on top of a stack. Dad's woodworking tools organized on shelves. Photo albums. Our old baseball gloves. The quilt Grandma made. And there, leaning against the back wall, was a piece of door frame with pencil marks and dates going back 20 years. You cut it out of the wall, I said. I couldn't let it all go. I know you think I'm heartless. That I only cared about the money. But I'm not. I saved everything that mattered. I just couldn't carry the building anymore. I walked into the storage unit and picked up one of the photo albums. Opened it. There was Mom in the kitchen, flour on her face, laughing at something off camera. There was Dad teaching Marcus how to ride a bike. There was all of us on Christmas morning, wrapping paper everywhere, the tree lit up behind us. I thought you destroyed everything, I said. I thought about it. When I was at my worst, I wanted to burn it all. But I couldn't. Because even though that house was suffocating me, this stuff is us. Our history. I couldn't erase that. I sat down on the concrete floor surrounded by boxes. Marcus sat down next to me. And I started to cry. Not the angry tears I'd cried that morning. Something deeper. Relief. Gratitude. All of it mixed together. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry I left you alone. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I made you carry all of this by yourself. I'm sorry I forged your name. I'm sorry I didn't ask. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger. We sat there in that storage unit for hours. Talking. Really talking. About Mom's last voicemail that I still listen to sometimes. About how Marcus used to sleep in Dad's study because it still smelled like his cologne. About the guilt we both carried for not being in the car that night. For surviving when they didn't. The sun was gone when we finally left. Marcus locked the unit behind us. We stood in the parking lot under the fluorescent lights and he looked at me. What happens now? He asked. I thought about the lawyer I could call. The fraud case I could build. The way I could make him pay for what he did. And I thought about my brother, sober for 2 months, trying to rebuild his life, carrying guilt and grief in equal measure. Now we figure out how to be brothers again, I said. He nodded. And for the first time in 3 years, I saw something like hope in his eyes. I met with a lawyer the next morning. Her office was downtown, all glass and leather and the smell of expensive coffee. She listened to my story, looked at the documents Marcus had given me, and told me what I already knew. You have a strong case. Forgery, fraud, unauthorized sale of jointly owned property. We could pursue criminal charges. Civil suit for damages. He'd likely face jail time and significant financial penalties. She slid a contract across her desk. So what would you like to do? I looked at the paper. My signature line waiting at the bottom. One pen stroke and I could make Marcus pay for everything he'd done. Legal justice. Righteous revenge. The law on my side. But I kept thinking about that storage unit. About my brother cutting out a doorframe because he couldn't let our heights disappear. About him spending money on rehab instead of keeping it all for himself. About the way he looked when he said he couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I need some time, I said. She nodded professionally. Take the time you need. But Mr. Chin, the statute of limitations doesn't wait forever. I left without signing anything. I called Marcus that afternoon and asked him to meet me at the coffee shop we used to go to as kids. He was still there, somehow. Same red booths, same jukebox in the corner that probably hadn't worked since 1995. We sat across from each other with coffee neither of us was drinking. Did you see a lawyer? He asked. Yes. He nodded slowly. Waiting. I could destroy you, Marcus. Legally. Financially. I could put you in jail. I know. But I'm not going to. He looked up at me, surprised. I'm not going to pretend what you did was okay. It wasn't. You betrayed my trust. You broke the law. You made a decision about our shared property without me. All of that is true. I leaned forward. But you're my brother. You're the only family I have left. And I failed you too. I left you alone with all of it. The house, the grief, the weight of everything. I sent money and called on holidays and convinced myself that was enough. It wasn't. His eyes were red. So here's what we're going to do. We split what's left of the money fairly. No lawyers. No police. Clean slate. But I have one condition. Anything. We use part of the money to start something. A foundation. In Mom and Dad's names. He looked confused. They were always about helping people. Mom volunteered at the food bank every Saturday. Dad coached Little League for 15 years. They believed in giving back. So that's what we're going to do. I pulled out my phone and showed him what I'd been researching all morning. A scholarship fund. For kids who've lost parents. Help them afford college, therapy, whatever they need. We can't bring Mom and Dad back. We can't undo what happened. But we can make sure their legacy is more than just a sold house and 2 broken sons. Marcus stared at the screen. You do that? After everything I did. You're my brother. I don't want to lose you over a house. Even that house. He put his head in his hands and his shoulders shook. People in the coffee shop glanced over, but I didn't care. Let them look. Let them see 2 grown men trying to find their way back to each other. When he finally looked up, he said, let's do it. We spent the next 3 months building it. The paperwork was complicated. Setting up a nonprofit takes lawyers and accountants and endless forms. But we did it together. Marcus handled the financial side. I worked on the mission statement and application process. We argued about details. We compromised. We slowly remembered how to be brothers. We named it the Sarah and Michael Chen Memorial Scholarship Fund. Our parents' names. Their legacy. The first year, we awarded 3 scholarships. $5,000 each to kids who'd lost parents and were trying to make it to college. The applications broke our hearts. So many kids carrying grief we understood. So many stories of loss and resilience and hope. One recipient was a girl named Emma. 17. Lost both parents in a house fire when she was 14. She wrote us a letter after receiving the scholarship. You don't know what this means. Not just the money, though that helps more than I can say. But knowing that someone sees me. That someone who understands loss thinks I'm worth investing in. That maybe I can build something good from all this pain. Thank you for believing in me when I stopped believing in myself. Marcus and I read that letter together in his apartment. We both cried. Mom and Dad would be proud, he said. Yeah, they would. I moved back closer to home 6 months after that first meeting in the coffee shop. Not to our old neighborhood. I couldn't do that. But within an hour's drive. Close enough to have dinner with Marcus once a week. Close enough to be present. He stayed sober. 8 months. Then a year. Then 18 months. He went to meetings. Saw a therapist. Slowly put himself back together. I started seeing a therapist too. Turned out running 3,000 miles away from your grief doesn't actually make it go away. We went through the storage unit together on weekends. Dividing things up. Telling stories. Deciding what to keep and what to let go. I took Mom's recipe box and Dad's favorite hammer. Marcus kept the photo albums and the quilt. We both wanted the doorframe with our heights, so we agreed to keep it in the storage unit. Shared custody of our childhood. One Saturday morning in early summer, Marcus called me. I want to drive by the house. Together. One last time. We went at dawn, just like he'd suggested. Parked across the street. The family had been living there almost 2 years now. They'd repainted the shutters. Added a swing set in the backyard. The lawn looked good. Well maintained. But remember when we tried to build that treehouse and Dad had to come rescue us because we built it too high? Marcus said. We were so confident. Had no idea what we were doing. Kind of like now. I laughed. Yeah, kind of like now. We sat there as the sun came up, turning the sky from purple to pink to gold. And I realized something. The house was just a house now. The memories lived in us. In the stories we told. In the way Marcus remembered Mom's laugh and I remembered Dad's terrible jokes. In the foundation we built and the kids we helped and the choice we made to be brothers instead of enemies. It's not ours anymore, I said. No. But we're okay anyway. We drove away. Didn't look back. We had breakfast at that old coffee shop. Made plans for the next scholarship cycle. Talked about maybe taking a trip together. Somewhere Mom and Dad always wanted to go but never got the chance. Life moved forward. The way it always does. Whether you're ready or not. 6 months later, we presented our 4th round of scholarships at the community center. 7 kids this year. Each one carrying loss and hope in equal measure. After the ceremony, one of the recipients asked to take a photo with us. Marcus and I stood together, arms around each other, smiling. The kids snapped the picture. A new memory being made. One that had nothing to do with that house on Maple Street and everything to do with what we chose to build from its ashes. That night, I thought about what I'd say if I could talk to the version of myself who got that text from Marcus 2 years ago. The one who felt like his entire world had been sold out from under him. I tell him this. Home isn't a place. It's not 4 walls and a roof. It's not an address or a property deed or a collection of rooms where things happened. Home is what you carry with you. It's the people you refuse to give up on. It's the stories you keep alive. It's the choice to build something new when everything old falls apart. My brother sold our family home without telling me. For a long time, I hated him for it. But losing that house was how we found each other again. How we learned that the only home that ever really mattered was the one we built together. Not in a building, but in the space between forgiveness and grace. In the daily choice to be family even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The house on Maple Street is gone. But we're still here. Still brothers. Still building something that matters. And maybe that's the point. Maybe home was never about where you've been. It's about who you choose to become. And who you choose to become it with. Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember what's worth keeping. And sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones most worth saving. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to survive our grief. And if we're lucky, we find someone who's willing to survive it with us. That's what family really means. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe to my Reddit diaries for more real stories about family, betrayal, and redemption. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to choose between being right and being family? What did you choose? I read every single comment. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next story.